Hey everybody, it's Troy Chasen, and I'm doing a real quick tutorial for some of the people in the class about setting up a domain controller. So, if you already know how to do this, or you've already done the assignment, you don't need to watch this. If you haven't done it and you're a little confused, maybe not quite sure what to do, I'm going to do a demonstration on it real fast. It's super easy to do. It's not hard. It's just kind of knowing what you're doing and where to look. And one of the things you do need to understand about any of the Microsoft Server products is that there's, or even Windows 10, there's a million ways to do something. It's not that there's only one way to do it. There's a million ways that you could go about doing this. So I'm going to show you how I would do it, but that doesn't mean that that's how you have to do it, okay? We've got a bunch of different people in the class, and I'm sure all of them would do it differently than I'm doing it. So, that's no big deal. All right, with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at this. Now, I'm logged into a server right now. This is a virtual image that I've had set up at the university. So right now, this is just server 2016 generic, okay? And when you want to install roles and features, there's several things that you can do here. You can click on the start button down here in the far left corner, and you can go to server managers. You can go to Windows administrative tools. There's and get to server manager. There's all sorts of stuff that you could actually do in order to get to this, but we'll use server manager. It's probably the easiest. Okay, so now we're at Server Manager, and you have file and storage services, which that's pretty common to have already kind of generically installed. Local server, all servers. So what this is saying is that this has, since it's a server, it has the potential to control multiple servers, and you can control multiple servers from one location, but we're just going to worry about this single server right now. All right, so in the manageability, we click on it, and it tells us all the different, this is going to give us just a bunch of different areas that we can look at and that we can deal with if we had it set up that way. I'm kind of giving you the tutorial of how to go through this whole thing. So now I'm looking at this local server in particular, and I can see the name, I can see the domain that it's in, I can see that the domain firewall is on. I can see that I've got different things enabled, some disabled. Okay, so you can see the events, when someone logged in, errors, installation of updates, things like that will pop up. Best Practices Analyzer, there was a question on the quiz about that, and then I found out that because you guys had a different book than I did, it didn't talk about this, which is kind of stupid, but this Best Practices Analyzer will actually tell you if you've set things up inside your server correctly or not. So after you're done setting up the domain controller, you can come to Best Practices Analyzer and look at it and see, did I do it right? Is it right? Okay, so that's what Best Practices Analyzer is for. If you remember back to your Windows 10 class, this is that performance. We had similar tools in Windows 10 that you could look at to see what your performances were. This is more of a generic one that you can just come in here and look to see, okay, do we get any CPU alerts, whatever it is. You can still do the task manager and pull up, performance manager and things like that. But this will, you can pull this down and I can configure my performance alerts, so I can say, okay, so I want to set an alert for when I use, say, 90% of my CPU is being used, and when my memory, which is my RAM, gets below a certain number, I want to be alerted to that. And that's all part of what we call baselining. And you'll talk about that a lot in networking classes. But baselining is really the key to being able to keep your network secure. Sorry. Okay, so now we have roles and features right here. This will tell you the different roles and features that we have installed. And so far we have 14 different things on here. And that's not uncommon, because you have to have some roles and features in order for even the shell of the server to work. You don't need to worry about what any of these mean yet. But I mean, if you have questions, I'm happy to answer those for you. But just to give you an example, SMB, that's storage or server message block, and you have to have that in order to have file sharing. .NET 4.6. .NET is a framework that used to be originally Microsoft, but now anybody can get it. And it's important. It's essential to running systems in a Windows environment. Okay. All right. So up in the top, you're going to have a toolbar, as you can see. It's kind of like a little ribbon up there. You can have manage, tools, view, help, all sorts of different things. But what I want to point out is that there's really two important options for what we're doing right now that you need to be aware of. The top one, add roles and features. The second one, remove roles and features. This is where you're going to go through whatever steps are necessary to create the server that you want. Because each server in a Microsoft network is different. And it's different in the sense that you have a domain controller, and that has certain things on it, which I'll show you. You have a web server. It's going to have different things on it. You have a SQL server. It will be set up differently. You will say you have a file share and print share server, one where you have files that you're allowing the company to see and for others to share so that they can collaborate and work together. That's going to have another set of roles and features on it. So it all depends on what you're doing. So for the domain controller, it's pretty simple. Go to add roles and features. Then you're going to get this box that pops up and it says before you begin, and it's going to tell you all the different things that just kind of give you an idea of what you need to do and what you need to set up. Okay, so here, start the remove role and features wizard. All right, that's if you want to remove things. So let's go to the next one. Now I'm going to check this skip by default because I don't want to see it again. Are we going to do this as a role or feature based? Or is this going to be the remote desktop services installation? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and say this is role based, feature based installation. You're going to click next. So now, if I had all these networked together, which I don't have them done that way on purpose, it would give you a bunch of servers to select from if you had it that way. Okay, so for us, we only have one server, and it's already been selected. Okay, so if we come over here, here are the roles: Active Directory, DHCP, DNS, fax server, Hyper-V. You go down the whole list of stuff. Okay, so a domain controller is really made up of Active Directory domain services, and it's going to install all of these tools. Okay, and you just want to say add features, and then it has DNS, okay, so this is flagging it because whoever set this up for me in their IT department didn't make this a static IP address. We're going to say continue because we're going to uninstall this when I'm finished. So, but if you were to see this in real life, this is a problem. And anytime you have an error that comes up like this saying, hey, this isn't whatever the error is, this one says no static IP were found on this computer. Well, that's a problem, especially with servers, especially a domain controller. That means that if it's not static, it's being run by DHCP. And that means that the IP address can change. And you don't want the IP address changing on your domain controller, because then other computers may have a hard time finding it. So if you ever ran into something like that, then you'd want to take a screenshot of the error that you came up with, so that you could at least show somebody and say, hey, look at this. This looks crazy. I don't like this, and they can help walk you through it. Okay, we're just gonna hit continue. Okay, I'm going to put .NET 3.5 on there just because I know a lot of programs need it. But, for this assignment, you don't have to do that. All right? You'll also notice over here, every time you click on something, it's going to give you a description of what this is. Alright? So, you notice that group policy management right here is already checked. Okay, so this knows that it's going to be a domain controller by the items that I've selected. Active Directory, DNS. And so, it's going to include your group policy. And that's because group policy is part of a domain controller. All right, so this is this Active Directory domain services, and it tells you what it does. Okay, and there will be a lecture on Active Directory coming up, so I won't go too deep into that for right now. But we're not going to worry about this Azure Active Directory right now. That's an Active Directory that lives up in the clouds. Up in the cloud, sorry. Okay, so DNS, it tells us about what that is, and that's fine. It's not a problem. Don't worry about this, we don't care. Then we hit install. Okay, this is a good thing for you guys to see. So I've run into an error, and when you run into an error, the first thing you want to do is take a screenshot of the error. And then you also want to read it and see what it's telling you, okay? And when I read on here, it says the request to add or remove features on the specified server failed. Installation of one or more roles, role services, or features failed. Okay? Well, I'm pretty sure that it's the .NET 3.5. Because .NET 3.5 isn't natively included, and I may not have the updates and the proper files to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and close this now because I think I know what's wrong. We're not going to pick .NET 3.5. We're going to leave that one alone, and I'm sure it'll install correctly this time without that there. I'm doing this as a super basic install. There's other things that I would probably put it on here, but for right now, this is just a basic tutorial on how to do it. Next. We know it's next. Next. Restart automatically. I'm not going to worry about that because it'll disconnect us if it happens. We'll install it, and we'll see how this one goes. It should go pretty quickly. Okay. As you can see, it's showing that the installation is finished. It says configuration required. That's okay. But if you look right here, it gives you this prompt. Promote this server to a domain controller. And it knows you want this to be a domain controller, or at least it thinks you do, because of the roles and features that you selected. Okay, so I'm going to add a new forest. The root domain name is going to be Taysom.me. We'll go Taysom.u, see if that works. Okay. I already have a domain controller set up on this, so that's why it puked at me. Let's see, flexes. Fine. Password. Put a password in that you're going to remember. So this is, again, this relates to the fact that I already have a domain controller on this. And so it's giving it a new NetBIOS domain name, which now it wants you to default, okay? Don't mess with that. Just leave those. Okay. So now it's telling you everything that it's going to do and what it's going to name stuff. And you can click here and it'll tell you more about the options of what you're doing. When you do that, what it's going to do is put you out onto the internet, and not really the best idea, especially if you're in here with an admin password. So I just wanted you to see that when you do ask for help, they're going to try to send you to one of their sites, which usually doesn't work. So we'll give this a second to run, and then we'll pick it back up. You'll see that what's happened is that this is checking to make sure that all the prerequisites are in place and ready to go for this to get installed. And I have a green check mark. It says that they're all the checks passed successfully. I'm ignoring these warnings right now because I know about those. And I'm going to click install. So you see at one time this was joined to my domain. It's now taking it off of that domain because I've created kind of a new domain for it. Okay. Now it's going to restart this. And you give it a few minutes, which I will do. I'm going to pause the video or the lecture, and then we'll give it a few minutes, and then you'll see. We'll let it get back up and running, and then I'll show you what your domain controller looks like. Okay, it looks like our server's back up, so I'm going to remote into it again. Discoverable. We see that we have AD now, Active Directory, and DNS. Here it says that we're missing 2 services. Let's take a look and see what they are. Okay, Maps Manager and this one. Now, when you look at this, this is interesting. This is something you should learn. Services on any machine in Windows can be set up to either start automatically, have a delayed start, or require a manual start. And the reason that they have different options is because you don't want all your services to start at once. You just want the critical ones to start. And sometimes if you don't do that, if you make everything start automatically, they'll bump into each other, and then one of the services won't start, and then you end up with a big problem on your hands because you're going to be troubleshooting it and trying to figure out what happened. So this is fine for us. So now we can get out of this. Now, remember how I was telling you there's a million ways you can do things? Okay, if you go over here, you can click on ADS, that's Active Directory. And you can see the different things that you can do within Active Directory, okay? And same with DNS. Now, for me, what I like to do is I like to go into here, and then I like to get into the Windows Administrative. And then I like to come down. So we have Active Directory, Administrative Center, all these different things. So we're going to go in here. So this is what Active Directory looks like, where I like to go and use it. I can go in here and I can create all sorts of different stuff. I can create new OUs. I can do all the stuff that I need to do within here, and so that's the whole point. Again, you're going to be doing some more work inside a domain controller, and you're going to be adding users of Active Directory. Then you also have DNS. Now, and those are the three things that you have to have in order to make Active Directory effective.